Welcome back to Apex Sci-Fi. There are worlds in the galaxy that actively want you dead. K'Thani is one of them. It is a super jungle planet, a suffocating greenhouse where the trees grow 1,000 feet tall and block out 90% of the sunlight. The air is so humid it feels like breathing soup, and it's filled with hallucinogenic spores. The fauna is hexapodal, carnivorous, and armored. The flora is poisonous, carnivorous, and sometimes explosive. The K'Thani Hegemony, a species of tall, elegant bipeds obsessed with technological purity, claimed K'Thani for its rare biocrystalline resources. But they hated the planet. They built hermetically sealed, gleaming citadels above the canopy, refusing to set foot in the barbaric muck below. They relied on armies of automated drones and high-altitude scanners to patrol the jungle. When the Terran United Command needed to take out the primary K'Thani sensor hub located deep in Sector 7, a facility that was blinding human fleets in the sector, they knew an orbital strike wouldn't work. The canopy was too dense and the Citadel's shields were too strong. They needed boots on the ground. But regular Marines would die in hours from the environment alone. So they sent the 7th Ranger Battalion. The Swamp Foxes. Captain Lena Ghost Vance didn't look like a futuristic soldier of the 33rd century. She looked like something that had crawled out of a prehistoric swamp. She wore no power armor, it was too loud, too heavy, and the K'Thani scanners were tuned to detect fusion power cells. Instead, she wore a ghillie suit woven from local K'Thani flora, treated to mask her thermal signature. Her skin was covered in thick, cold mud that blocked infrared sensors and repelled the local biting insects. "All right, foxes," Vance whispered over the localized short-range bone conduction comms. "Welcome to the salad bar. The K'Thani think they own this rock because they built a few glass towers above it. They don't know the first rule of the jungle: if you aren't part of the food chain, you're dinner." The Rangers moved through the underbrush in perfect silence. They didn't hack through the vines, they slid between them. They didn't step on dry leaves, they instinctively found the patches of damp moss. They were 20 soldiers who moved like a single shadow. Above them, on elegant light bridges suspended between the massive trees, K'Thani patrols walked in pristine, glowing blue armor. Their helmets were equipped with multispectrum scanners that could detect a heat signature from 5 miles away. But they couldn't see the Rangers. The human mud and natural camouflage were low-tech cloaking devices that confused their billion-credit sensors. The K'Thani saw only the ambient temperature of the wet jungle. "Contact above," Vance signaled with a subtle hand gesture. "Patrol Alpha. 5 X-rays. Too noisy. Take them down quietly." The Rangers raised their weapons. They didn't use energy rifles. The flash and the ozone smell would give them away instantly. They used suppressed, subsonic kinetic carbines firing heavy, Teflon-coated slugs. Thwip, thwip, thwip. The sounds were barely louder than raindrops hitting a leaf. 5 K'Thani warriors on the bridge above suddenly jerked violently as the heavy slugs punched through the weaker neck joints of their armor. They collapsed silently, their bodies caught by the safety webbing of the bridge. "Clear," Vance whispered. "Keep moving. We're ghosts until we kick down the door." They reached the perimeter of the sensor citadel on day 3. It was a massive, gleaming spire of white durasteel rising from the jungle floor, surrounded by a clear-cut zone filled with automated turret towers. "They cleared the jungle back 500 meters, Sergeant Jax muttered, lying prone next to Vance in the mud. "It's a kill zone. Any movement there, and those turrets will vaporize us." Vance looked at the turrets through her biological binoculars. "They're relying on motion sensors and thermal imaging. They think the jungle stops at the tree line." She reached into a pouch and pulled out a handful of small, bioengineered seeds they had harvested earlier. Time to expand the garden. The Rangers used whisper-quiet pneumatic launchers to fire the seeds into the clear-cut zone. These weren't normal seeds. They were strangler vines, a hyper-aggressive K'Thani plant species that grew feet in minutes when exposed to certain chemical catalysts. Vance cracked a chemilite stick and threw it into the zone. The chemicals reacted with the soil. Within minutes, the clear-cut zone was a writhing mass of thick, thorny green vines. The strangler vines grew with terrifying speed, wrapping around the automated turrets, blocking their sensors and jamming their rotation gears. The turrets fired blindly into the new growth, wasting their energy banks on vegetables. "Garden's open," Vance grinned, her teeth white against the mud on her face. "Move up. Use the vines for cover." The Rangers crawled through the newly grown thorns, ignoring the scratches and the insects. They reached the base of the citadel and planted shaped magnetic charges on the maintenance airlock. Boom. The explosion breached the seal. The Rangers flooded inside, shedding their ghillie suits but keeping the mud. The interior of the citadel was sterile, white and painfully bright. It smelled of ozone and artificial air freshener. The K'Thani defenders inside were panicked. Their screens were showing a dozen different alarms, but their sensors still couldn't get a lock on the intruders. "Where are they?" the K'Thani base commander screamed, his elegant hands shaking over the tactical console. The jungle is inside the perimeter. My turrets are useless." Then the lights went out. The Rangers had cut the main power conduit. In the emergency red lighting, the humans were terrifying. They moved with the aggression of apex predators dragged into a cage. The K'Thani fired wildly with their plasma rifles, blinding themselves with the muzzle flashes. The Rangers responded with brutal, controlled bursts of kinetic fire and combat hatchets. Vance led the charge to the central control room. The K'Thani commander, flanked by his elite guards, raised his energy staff. "Barbarians," the commander hissed, his translator struggling with the rage in his voice. "You wallow in the filth. You are beneath notice." Vance didn't slow down. She slid under the commander's guard, using the slick mud on the floor to her advantage. She rose up inside his reach, jamming her combat knife into the gap under his helmet. The commander gargled and collapsed. "Yeah, we like the filth," Vance panted, pulling her knife free. "It hides the blood better." The Rangers rigged the sensor core with enough explosives to crack the planet's crust. They didn't bother fighting their way out. They blew a hole in the side of the citadel and rappelled down into the canopy below, disappearing back into the green hell they called home. Behind them, the K'Thani citadel erupted in a massive fireball, a temporary sun that illuminated the jungle for miles. The K'Thani Hegemony lost Sector 7 that day. Not because their fleet was destroyed but because they couldn't see the enemy standing right in front of them. The surviving K'Thani soldiers who were evacuated spoke in hushed tones about the mud demons that moved like smoke and killed without sound. The Galactic Council was disturbed by the reports. They realized that humanity didn't just have high-tech fleets and armored tanks. We had something much older. We had the instinct of the persistence hunter. We were a species that had spent 200,000 years learning how to cover ourselves in dirt, sit perfectly still for 3 days, and put a sharp stick through something bigger than us. Put a human in a jungle with a high-tech alien, and the alien isn't the hunter. It's prey that just hasn't realized it's being stalked yet. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. If you can't see us, it's already too late. If you enjoyed this story of low-tech stealth beating high-tech arrogance, hit that like button. Comment below, what's the best camouflage you can think of for a sci-fi setting? Subscribe for the next front of the Iron Vanguard, the Trench of Eternal Night. The jungle is quiet again. The ghosts are gone.